Welcome to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast, where you get unconventional insights into wealth building and retirement that actually work. Discover data-driven strategies and learn from a wealth of experience so that you can take your retirement to the next level. Now, here's your host. He was once bitten by a harbor seal, the income engineer, Kraig Strom.
Okay, great to be back with you here on Personal Pension Radio, broadcasting live from Mr. Foley's van down by the river. You can also check us out on personalpensionradio.com. We are all about helping you, our audience, pull together the correct balance necessary to get yourself all the way up the retirement mountain and through your retirement years with your lifestyle intact. Nowadays, we are ever so deep into a retirement income crisis in America. The baby boomers are retiring in mass quantities, and this is the first major generation to retire or attempt to retire on the 401k and the IRA, long after pensions have gone the way of extinction in most situations. So folks are finding right now with an unstoppable situation, unwanted events in the market and globally, that reaching their maximum retirement potential is just really difficult. Personal Pension Radio is focused on bringing together the information you need to find the right balance, to keep your lifestyle today, tomorrow into retirement, and generationally, to leave a legacy. So before I begin today, disclosure, this is a short disclosure. I am not an attorney. We are not attorneys. We're not CPAs. And more importantly, even if we were attorneys or CPAs, you should not act on advice that you hear from financial entertainers or financial advisors on a radio show or podcast or TV. You really should meet with a qualified, licensed financial advisor to go over your specific situation before you act on anything that you might hear on the radio or on a podcast. So with that in there, keep that in mind, and we'll jump right into the first segment today. This segment that we've done in the past called Watch Your Step. And I bring this up today from an experience that I had recently where someone asked me what I do, and this was at a recent human resources conference that I was attending. I was actually a keynote speaker at the conference. It was a great event, but prior to the event, someone asked me a question. They said, well, what should I do? They were fairly young, recently out of school, and they asked me a question about where should they begin investing for the first time. And my question to them was, well, what have you done in order to protect yourself prior to investing? And I'll tell you what, if they could have a more confused look on their face, I'm not sure if it would have been possible. But I followed up the question with, well, where have you looked for advice so far? And the answer was, of course, the internet. So they had looked for advice on the internet. And I said, well, what did you search for on when you went to the internet and you were searching? What were you looking for? Well, they said, well, I typed in and looked for how to save for retirement. So that was what they typed into the Google search. So out of curiosity, after the conference, I typed in that same phrase into Google. I typed in the phrase, how to save for retirement. And sure enough, the first, 50 things to pop up were from various investment companies and how-to blogs and such. So I clicked on the very first one from a very large, nationally known investment firm that helps people apparently with this information on what they call preparing for retirement. And sure enough, the very first things they start talking about are how much do we need to save? Do I need an IRA? If I have a 401k, should I count on Social Security? What can I do now to save? Okay, all the way through the advice, I went all the way top to bottom. When should I start saving? Do you know what's not in here? Nowhere in here does it start with what, in our opinion, here at Personal Pension Radio, is the most important point. You start with protection first. you don't start with savings. You start with protection. It's just like building a house or building a castle. The very first thing that happens when you build anything, like a home or an apartment building, or think back to the old adage of the old castles. What did the people who built castles in ancient times build around their castles? Of course, they built a moat. They built strong defenses because they didn't have Allstate or Farmers or some big insurance company to come in and protect them in case people stole things from them or in case the castle burned down. They would build protection first. And that has been lost in the conversation today. So here's this young person, fresh out of school, asking a major financial institution for advice. Now, albeit they didn't ask a qualified financial advisor, they asked a website. They went to the web, they asked for information, but sure enough, the bulk of the information that they saw said, here's how you save, here's how much you should save, here's when you should save. Not one place in there, and I searched, did it say you really should protect your castle first. So let's think this through. That if, let's say this young person out of college started saving, and they started saving up their emergency money, and then they started saving money in their 401k, and they started saving, various different places, and they got into a car accident. Well, and it turns out that the car accident is their fault, and their car insurance was actually substandard because they never checked it. They did not have the coverages they needed. Well, lo and behold, they end up being liable for the accident, and now the person that they ran into in the car accident is able to sue them and take some of their wages for a lengthy period of time. Well, now, are they able to save for retirement anymore when someone has access to a large amount of their paycheck garnished for a liability claim? No, of course not. So their ability to save has been completely rendered inadequate or unable to save, all because we didn't take care of our car insurance. Well, what if we're in a situation where we have a home? Same situation, and someone comes on our property and is injured, and we have substandard or below the maximum limits of coverage, we could get sued and be held liable. And the next thing you know, we've got a liability claim against us, and we have to stop saving or even draw money from our savings to pay the bill. So that's why we teach protection first. Fix your home insurance, your car insurance. Make sure that if you have assets and you have a good, strong income and good, strong, a strong job and a career, especially if you have children out there driving around or out there in the world, you need umbrella liability insurance. You've got to make sure that your castle is protected so that no one can come in and take your stuff. And that way, when you do begin to save, your savings are not vulnerable. They're not vulnerable to attack because you've protected the castle. Okay? We want you to challenge conventional wisdom. Don't just get in line behind the rest of the herd. Ask questions. Ask why. For example, let's challenge a little conventional wisdom. A couple of funny questions. What color is the black box? Well, the black box is orange. It's not black. How long was the 100-Year War? It was 116 years long. So who says the black box is black, right? Challenge, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask the question that you might learn something different. Open your mind to something new, okay? So this young, recently out of college student got some quick advice from me at this HR conference, which was, whoa. When's the last time you had your car insurance double-checked? When's the last time you had your renter's insurance double-checked? Make sure that your protection is bulletproof before you start investing in an IRA or 401k. And then make sure that you have plenty of cash on hand to cover emergencies. Make sure that you've got good cash on hand. And then, of course, they came back with Conventional wisdom says, oh, cash, you're not earning any rate of return on your cash in the bank. And you've heard us say it here before on the show. Cash is powerful. It's there for emergencies, but most importantly, it's there for opportunities. People with cash are ready for opportunities. People without cash are stuck with going to credit and going to the bank and borrowing money when an opportunity comes up, and that's just the wrong process. Strong protection, strong foundation. Foundation being cash on hand first. So that's my bit of a rant on the watch your step. That conventional wisdom just drives you nuts out there. So be careful. Go to Personal Pension Radio, check out our other podcasts, and download the free report. The Optimizing Retirement Income Report is, in my opinion, just one of the best resources that you could ever get for being well prepared to go down the road here as you save for and get ready for retirement. So the next thing I wanted to cover is a follow-up on a recording that I actually did just last, I think it was just last week, just the last time around, where I'd actually lost a client that's been a client with me for many years. He and his wife, when I met them, years ago, he just recently passed away, and I had mentioned on the podcast that I would be attending his funeral, and I wanted to follow up on the good planning that this husband and wife had done, and really bring to the forefront this idea of proper planning. Do it ahead of time so that it can go smoothly for your family and for those left behind. So for those of you who haven't heard this episode, this is a great guy, doctor, and his wife. And prior to this doctor ever getting sick, years before, he took action along with his wife to make sure that they had all of their legal ducks in a row and their estate planning ducks in a row. At least they thought they had. When they met me, they were fairly confident that they had everything set up as well as they should have. And yet, this gentleman and his wife were good enough to entertain a bit of an investigation from this new person, me, when they met me. And we started digging in. We started asking questions about, okay, well, who do you want to receive this when you pass away? And who do you want to take care of things when this happens or that happens? And oh, you want your son to take care of things, but where does your son live? Oh, your son is currently out of the country. Oh, interesting. That could make things quite difficult if something were to happen where that son would need to step in as an executor or a trustee. Being out of the country could make things a little difficult. Lo and behold, as we dug deeper and deeper, we did find areas that needed to be updated, things that needed to be changed, great-grandchildren that needed to be added into the planning and gifting that would be done when husband and wife had passed away. So we started asking questions. We started saying, okay, who do we want to be the trustee? Who do we want to be the executor? And there was nothing difficult about it. It was just things had changed a little. The family had relocated. Some of the members of the family had moved away. And the important thing to take away from this piece is always come back and revisit the estate planning, the wills and the trusts and the powers of attorney. Make sure that you come back and revisit those things. And just as a matter of a note, just to cover something here, this is a good place to remember, I'm not an attorney. I'm a certified financial planner, and I'm not going to give out any legal advice. I'm just giving out some good general financial commentary as it relates to wills and trusts, powers of attorney. What's the difference? Why do you need a trust if you have a will, or why do you need a will if you have a trust? And can I just get away with powers of attorney? I've heard these questions, I think it feels like 100 times. Well, a will is literally an instruction book, if you will, a list of things that the probate court could use if somebody passes away. It's just the It tells the courts and the family what to do with the assets of a deceased person. Now, a living trust, on the other hand, is more like an entity unto itself, and assets that are inside and owned by a trust are not therefore owned by a living person. So when someone passes away, now a deceased person, those assets that were in the trust are not the property of a deceased person and therefore not subject to probate. So a will handles the assets of a deceased person. A trust is an entity that essentially doesn't pass away, and therefore those assets that are held by a trust do not go to probate. Now, you need to generally have both, because you might not have every single thing that you can think of listed in the name of your trust, and a last will and testament combined with a trust, they work together. The will directs whatever's not in the trust to be handled by the trust. And then the trust, of course, doesn't go through probate because it's not a living and now deceased person. So if you have a will, great. If you own a home, for example, in California, and you only have a last will and testament, that is essentially a guaranteed trip to the probate court system in California. Owning real estate, generally of any kind, will mean that the family will usually have to open some form of probate, which could take anywhere from a year to a year and a half to settle probate, and it may cost many thousands of dollars in legal fees. So if you own a home in other states and other assets of any significant value, you generally want to get a living trust. Now, remember, as a husband and wife, you don't need a living trust. As a husband and wife, things will generally pass from husband to wife and wife to husband if one passes away before the other. And let's face it, if you both pass away, you don't need a living trust because you're gone. So the only reason, and this is I joke, the only reason that I recommend people get a living trust is because they love their kids and they love their grandkids, and they do not like the idea that the government will be involved in settling their estate or their affairs. So if you want to make sure you keep the probate systems and the state governments and federal government out of your estate business, a living trust is a good place to start. And you should consult with a qualified attorney, an estate planning attorney, to definitely look into that. And if you would like an introduction to or a recommendation of a great attorney, please go to Personal Pension Radio, send us a note. We'd be happy to double check and get a connection made for you. Okay? Now, who should be the trustee? Now, as I have visited now with the widow of my client who passed away, I met with her last week, and her son, who is the trustee. And we sat together for 2 hours going through all of the various different things that she is having to deal with, but more importantly, what her son is having to deal with. Because the job of trustee is not always an easy one. Now, in this particular case, we had taken care of a lot of the details together prior to the husband's passing away. So it has made things much, much easier for the son to be able to go through and process the various accounts that need to be moved and closed, and companies that need to be notified, and various things like that. So after the husband passed away, we of course had the funeral, and then the business of settling his affairs begins. So it's important to get death certificates from the funeral home, and get more than you need. I always suggest that folks get more than you need, because there's any number of companies that will end up asking for a death certificate, losing it, and asking for it again. That happens. Make sure that you contact your financial advisor. Hopefully, there's been a financial advisor involved in the process leading up to the estate plan being put in place, and then therefore, when someone passes away, one of the first points of contact will be that financial advisor that helped you get everything set up correctly. And then, of course, there's the accountant and, if needed, an attorney. Now, I have to tell you, when the wills and trusts and powers of attorney are done correctly, and you've got the right trustee and everybody is communicating together, generally don't need to involve too much on the attorney side of things after someone passes away. Because when a good attorney does a quality estate plan and puts together the wills and trusts and powers of attorney and healthcare directives, well, things actually are able to be processed without the assistance of an attorney. Now, without having those documents in place and having a good estate plan in place, I'll tell you, it's great for the attorneys who have to actually go to court and probate to settle that. It can cost tens of thousands of dollars out of the estate if you don't have everything set up correctly. But a really good estate planning attorney will have all of the documents and everything in place so that you probably won't need an attorney to settle everything up. Now, that doesn't mean you may not want to keep them on speed dial just in case. Okay? Another note, don't take the position of choosing, don't take that position of choosing or being the executor or trustee lightly. If you do it right in the beginning, everything can go nice and smoothly. And a very important note here, communicate with your family. If you're thinking about doing a will or thinking about getting a living trust done, don't keep it a secret, especially from the people that you're asking to be your trustee or your executor or executrix. Don't keep it a secret. Make sure there's lots of communication with your representatives, whether they be a professional representative or a family representative. Because when you have everybody on the same page, when everybody knows what's going on, it really is a smooth process. And isn't that the ultimate gift to leave behind, is not leaving behind a bunch of confusion, okay? So I've been very honored to be part of the financial and estate planning for this husband and wife that I've been mentioning here, and actually truly honored to be able to help the widow in settling the estate and the affairs of her husband and making sure that she is taken care of, because that was his primary focus. His primary focus, her husband wanted to make sure that when he was gone, that she would be okay. And I'm happy to report that she's going to be fine. She's got her son as the trustee, and he is right in there working alongside with me to make sure everything gets settled up just right, that her income is good and her assets are safe, and that she's okay at home. And I'm just honored to be part of that. So if you have questions about this, if you have a family member that you think might need to have their estate plan reviewed and discussed, go to Personal Pension Radio, get in touch with us there on the website, send us a note, ask for a consultation. We work with clients all around the country through GoToMeeting and conference calls, so feel free to give us a call from anywhere you are, drop us a line and we'll connect. And I'm happy to ask or answer any questions that you might have to ask. So I think that's enough for today. Excited to be part of Personal Pension Radio. We've had some wonderful feedback and just great audience from all around the world, all around the United States. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you get on over to iTunes. Leave us a fantastic review on iTunes. Let your friends know. And if you have any suggestions that you'd like to hear a particular topic covered in more detail on the show, please also leave that at Personal Pension Radio. Send us a message there, and we look forward to hearing from you. Until next time, take care. Have a great one. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast. If you missed anything during the show, that's okay. We took the notes for you. Check the show notes for links, offers, and a full transcript. And don't forget to head over to personalpensionradio.com and download your free retirement income report. While you're there, we'd appreciate some iTunes love. Please leave us a fantastic rating on iTunes by going to personalpensionradio.com/iTunes. Thanks again for listening.